Hello, everyone. So I wanted to come on here and talk about Neptune in Aries. So if you don't already know, Neptune ingressed or entered Aries on March 31st. And this was the day after this new moon solar eclipse. So pretty interesting. Also interesting that in our first eclipse of this season on March 14th, Mercury went retrograde the day after the full moon lunar eclipse. And Mercury and Neptune have a really interesting relationship to each other in consciousness because Mercury and Neptune work together. Mercury is the planetary guide to Virgo consciousness. And so you can think of Mercury sitting across from Pisces, right? Or Virgo sitting across from Pisces, and Pisces' planetary ruler is Neptune. So it's interesting, in these eclipses, we've had a change of direction of these planets immediately after the eclipses, and I think it's particularly pointing to something necessary within our own consciousness to invest our attention into. And of course, with Mercury, this is how we perceive information, how we communicate information, our thinking, what we're thinking, our thoughts, and how that assists us to discern what kind of beliefs we're holding in the unconscious and what kind of beliefs, or maybe we've even osmosed from the collective unconscious, which is Pisces. So given that, and then the fact, as I said, Neptune on the day after this latest new moon solar eclipse in Aries happened, Neptune ingresses into a new sign. And really, it's a long transit because Neptune will be in Aries until May of 2038. And, it's fascinating to me because Neptune moves into the sign of the solar eclipse in Aries, right? And so it's like Neptune's giving us this cue about our own Aries consciousness and the new exploration and exercise. And we could look at exercise as getting fit in a specific area, but exercise, like really actually also getting the opportunity to dissolve, to exorcise with an O, right? To dissolve things around our own Aries consciousness that has served its purpose so far, and also that will assist us to actually expand our Aries consciousness. And, likely also to really discern our own relationship to ourselves and our own relationship to the collective ideas that we've been swimming in regards to Aries and what Aries is about. Now, if you don't already know, Aries is the first sign of the wheel of consciousness. It's the beginning of all beginnings. This is where we emerge from the cosmic womb into existence in a new way, or the beginning of something. So, we're born. That's an Aries expression. We emerge out of the womb, and we've entered into a new identity, a new pathway of our existence, and a new trajectory of exploring who we are. And who we are isn't stagnant. It's not a static state necessarily. It's something that is constantly being discovered because we're infinite. It's infinite cycles. You know, we can look at the wheel of consciousness and the wheel just keeps going again and again. The planets keep going again and again throughout the sky, right? And by the way, Neptune is a 164-year transit. So the fact that we're experiencing Neptune in Aries is particularly significant. The fact that we got to experience Neptune in its own sign, Pisces, is significant because not everyone on Earth gets to experience that. So as Neptune has been in Pisces, we've been really getting the opportunity to dissolve things, ideas about our sense of spirituality, our sense of letting go of things, our connection and relationship to the collective and the collective unconscious. And among other things, and I won't go super detailed because I'll probably be writing about all of this. So I'm going to give you whatever the flow is today, and then there will be many, many more points to make as we continue. But Neptune moving into Aries, Aries is very, it's a very specific sign. It's an individual sign. When I say specific, that's what I mean. It's very individualized. So Neptune moving into Aries is going to be an interesting exploration in regards to our own identity. And remember, Chiron is in Aries right now. And so I do think this will assist us if we're navigating it consciously. We're really looking at our relationship with ourselves, and we're going to get the opportunity to do more healing in regards to our own masculine nature, and really also recognizing the masculine as a divine expression of soul. And we're going to get the opportunity to really spiritualize our Mars. And spiritualization, by that term, I mean having a more inclusive scope of what masculinity really is, and our own relationship to engaging that aspect of our consciousness, which very much has to do with our relationship to ourself. And when Neptune's in Aries, it's going to be opposing Libra. And so this can definitely mean, because Libra is a Yang Venus-ruled sign, this can mean that relationships in the outer world may dissolve. Relationships in the outer world may become more spiritual and more spiritualized. More spiritual connections can be coming into our life to assist us to expand our relationship to ourselves, expand our relationship to the masculine within ourselves and out in the world, and expand our creativity because of that. So, and I should say too, expand the collective consciousness in regards to our relationship to Yang consciousness. So, being that Chiron is in Aries while Neptune is there is wonderful. What's also very interesting is that through this transit of Neptune in Aries, Chiron will move into Taurus. And that's a Yin Venus ruled sign. Now that happens on June 19th of 2026. So we have, with Neptune in Aries, we're going to have some time with Chiron in Aries until about 2026. April 19th, 2026, Chiron moves into Taurus. It will retrograde. It will retrograde back into Aries. And that retrograde is September 17th of 2026. And then Chiron moves into Taurus for good. Well, I should say until Chiron moves into Gemini, which would be in 2033, okay? So Chiron will move into Taurus April 14th of 2027. Stay there. Have us doing the healing work in regards to our relationship to our own needs and our own desires through the senses, Taurus, our values, our experience of what we sense as value and our sense of loss. Okay, so Neptune will still be in Aries. Chiron will be in Taurus, and we'll be exploring that. And because Neptune will be in Aries at that time, it's opposing that Libra ruled sign, the Yang Venus ruled sign of Libra. So we get a lot of time here coming up to really look at our masculine and our feminine nature, Mars and Venus, healing our relationship to ourself, because Mars and Venus are personal planets, and therefore they are representative of our relationship to ourselves, how we act on our relationship to ourselves, and what we value, and how we embody or are able to embody what we value, or how we're not embodying what we value. Because what we value, we have to act upon. What we want to, what we desire to embody is absolutely our path, but often we have to be doing things to embody it, right? So if we've been taken off track by Saturnian things such as society, belief systems within society, cultural belief systems within society that have inhibited our expansion of what we value and doing what we value, then that's where the healing work needs to happen. So remember that Chiron is the bridge between Saturn and Uranus. And Saturn and Uranus have a very special relationship. They both are planetary guides or rulers to Aquarius, where Pluto is right now. It's going to be squaring the fixed signs. Mars and Venus are so associated with Pluto, right? Because this is where we make what's unconscious conscious by what we're acting on, which shows us what we're really actually valuing. Now, in our minds, we might value something different than what we're acting on. So that's where we get the opportunity to do the healing work, to change what we're acting upon, so that we can embody what we value and we can embody our values. And this transit of Chiron and Aries and Chiron and Taurus helps us to notice the bridge that needs to happen to get from one state of consciousness to the next state of consciousness, from the restrictions of the past, Saturn, into the incorporation or integration of the new, of embodying our vision for more consciousness. Not that Saturn always has to do with restriction in the sense of, oh, it means the past, but just that it's the stepping stone to integrating more. And so this is the work we have to do. And that's what Saturn represents. It's also what Uranus represents, although I would say Uranus is more the ideas that need to actually be implemented in order to get from point A to point B, to embody that integration of, and that work that has to happen to really create the foundations to support the expansion of consciousness, which is Uranus, okay? So this is a big transit, having Neptune move into Aries, because this is going to assist us to dissolve these ways in which we identify with ourselves and our own masculine, what we act on, dissolve what isn't actually serving us anymore in regards to our ideals, our ideal about ourselves, our ideal about who we can become. I don't know that any of us could ever not have some vision, some ideal of what we aspire to be, because there's always more consciousness. There's always more inspiration. There's always more to learn. There's always more beauty out there that we feel attracted to, that we desire to embody. And I feel like Neptune can assist us with that, especially moving through Aries, and then when it moves through Taurus too, because it's going to help us to look at our relationship with ourselves by what we're acting on and what we're actually valuing based on what we're acting on. And those are instincts, right? Mars and Venus are both so connected to Pluto because of Pluto is what's automatic default. It's our instinctual actions that have been programmed from our growth up to now. And so we're always really needing to look at, although especially with certain transits, how are we instinctually acting, and what is that really telling us about not what we think we believe, but actually what what's ingrained in on our most basic level of action and survival, because we associate these automatic pilot default settings, these programmed actions that we do. I respond this way in this situation. I respond this way in that situation. We do that because it's our perception of survival. That's how we've survived up to now. But that doesn't mean we're thriving. So we have to go through these times where we dissolve these old ideas that we somehow absorbed in our environment of the past, or environment of growth to get us to where we are now. But those things then can be utilized as an opportunity to recognize that those ideas serve a purpose, and now we are ready for including more. So I was thinking about Neptune, and with Neptune and Aries, it's going to be really interesting to watch the Mars-Neptune aspects happening, because, Mars rules Aries and Neptune's going to be right there. Chiron's there. So it's going to be interesting to be really, really noticing our instincts, really noticing our ideas around our masculine nature, really noticing the collective idea and ideals around the masculine nature. And are they healing? Are they inclusive? Are they loving? I do think that men and the masculine has gotten a lot of bad rap. And there's some healing to do there. And, I do feel that part of this is the sense of judgment. Now, with South Node moving through Virgo right now, this is going to help us, to assist us to look at those judgmental things, ideas we have running around in our head, where we judge ourselves, where we judge the masculine, where we judge the feminine, where we judge others, where we judge, quote unquote, gender, or all of those things can definitely be coming up. And, the thing about Neptune is it makes things unclear because it includes everything. And so it can feel unclear. And so it's going to be important for us to actually discern information, to clarify things for ourselves, to clean that up, and so that it works efficiently. So our own masculine nature works efficiently. And so it's really looked at, all of this is really looked at as a learning opportunity. That's it. We're here to learn. We're here to gather more consciousness to assist us to evolve in our evolutionary purpose. And Mars and Venus are the masculine and feminine that are personal planets that assist us to evolve our own evolutionary purpose and embody the soul. And our Mars and Venus actually are ways that we can awaken to recognize that we may be holding ideas that are untrue for us, that maybe works for someone else, doesn't work for us. It inhibits our power rather than enhances it, right? Scorpio and Pluto is really the reason why it can be associated with manipulation and the dark or the shadow, is because it can be coming from a place of harboring deceptions about ourselves, deceptions about our own value, or deceptions about others' value. You know, it can be a secretive and withholding aspect of consciousness, Scorpio or Pluto, because it can be not expressing the totality of the truth. So this is where Mars and Venus, watching that, but particularly with Neptune through Aries, watching our Mars, because it can help us to see where we're harboring deception about ourselves. And that deception isn't intentional necessarily, but it can be something we learned that actually isn't true. Like maybe it's, if I am, an example would be like, if I am vulnerable, then I will experience loss of some kind. Or if I, what's an example? Like, I don't have the resources I need to take the next step. That would be a lie, because we always do have something where we can take the next step. Or, we could be thinking we're not supported or we're not powerful. That is a lie, right? It's something that we learn to believe about ourselves. So I love Mars and Venus and Pluto because it helps us to see what we're really harboring, and it shows us where we can deceive ourselves and inhibit our own light, inhibit our power. It's always our choice. It isn't necessarily so much a choice in the outside world. It's more, where are we coming from? That's our point of power. And Mars helps us to see, where are we coming from? Are we coming from our point of power, our center, not someone else's center, but our center, right? And so that's an important piece. I wanted to share with you this story about the ingress of Neptune into Aries. So I had to go pick up my daughter from the ferry, and this was on the day that Neptune went into Aries, so on March 31st. And so she texted me and she's like, "Mom, we're on the ferry, but now we're going back to shore." And I was like, "Oh," she's like, "I don't know what's happening. They're having us get on a different boat. I might have to take a different boat." Okay. And I'm like, "Okay." And she said, "Somebody went overboard." And so they had to rescue this person. Okay, so it was a guy. I don't know who it was. And I feel for the guy. But the guy was actually sitting on the railing of the ferry. These are huge ferries, okay? He was sitting on the railing trying to take a picture. And he fell into the ocean. I mean, that is so Neptune and Aries. He was going to take a photo on the railing of the ferry and literally fell. I mean, that's like my fear, is falling from the ferry. because I'm actually also, I always take pictures, you know, and I'm always scared I'm gonna like drop my phone, you know. But anyways, so they ended up rescuing him, thankfully, and I don't think he was hurt or anything like that. I can imagine he was quite startled. That would be a very scary experience because they were out from the dock, you know, they were in the ocean. So, yeah, he literally fell into the ocean. And it was interesting that it was a man because, you know, it is a Mars ruled sign. So I feel like there was kind of this story that helped to see like paying attention, investing our attention in what we're doing and making sure we're not, you know, making sure we're seeing what we're actually doing and, you know, being aware that Neptune is going to have to do with ocean. It's going to have to do with water because Neptune rules a water sign, right? So just being aware that things like that, like we're putting these archetypes with the Mars, our action, what we're doing, and Neptune, which is the collective unconscious, and I'm going to give you some keywords for Neptune. So it's going to help you to recognize like how these, our Mars actions are going to be showing us our own Neptunian nature as well. So where we get kind of foggy, where we're not being clear, right? So some of the keywords I wrote down for Neptune is foggy, murky, deception because of that. Like when things aren't clear, it's very easy to be deceived by something. And it's easy for people to intentionally deceive us, right? So being really clear with our actions is going to be important, and really clarifying other people's actions is going to be important, because when things get foggy and murky, that can induce fear, which then has us not seeing things clearly. It's coming from a place of lack of trust rather than trusting, right? Like trusting ourselves, right? So we're going to want to make sure we're taking action so that we can trust ourselves. If there's something's unclear with someone else, it's going to be very important for us to take action to clarify rather than have our brains create all kinds of filling in the gaps of what's actually going on, which may not be what's going on. And that's how we can deceive ourselves, right? Because the brain wants to fill in the gaps. It's natural and it's instinct. That's what our brain does to keep us safe, protected. But remember that we can project our consciousness and we see something that is not happening because we're seeing from a specific lens, which can be an unconscious belief. So these are things to keep in mind. But with Neptune, things can be foggy, murky. We can be coming from ideas we've been fed that aren't necessarily true, past experiences that are not necessarily happening now, but all of this helps us to discern, right, and do the healing. Okay, so Neptune is foggy, murky, fantasy, imagination, creativity, spirituality, faith, the collective unconscious, our ideals, and our need for discernment in regards to our ideals as well. So this ideal that is driving our consciousness to become more, which is great, but not allowing our ideals about ourselves to actually inhibit an even better version of ourselves. Because sometimes we have ideals about ourselves, our relationships, and others, but that is something that can actually inhibit something even more idyllic to happen. Because our conscious mind, our ego mind, can only perceive a specific thing when you think about the vastness of consciousness. And so sometimes ideals can get in the way of actually seeing what's right in front of us, which is something really enriching and positive, right? But we think it's not quite it or whatever. So we can be looking at that about our own identity and about who we are and about our own masculine nature and our own creativity and what we really are going for in our ideals. But then where is our action getting kind of murky, where it's not clear? We're not putting out a very clear signal that this is what I value and this is what I'm going for and this is what is idyllic for me, while also being open to receive more information about where that ideal is taking me in my life, where that ideal is taking my creativity in my life, and how life wants to give to us more than we can even comprehend, but we have to be open to it. We have to actually be receptive. And yet, at the same time, discerning. That's where we bring in our Mars. How can we discern? And, really discernment, this is a tricky piece. So you're going to have to work with it yourself, right? But Mars separates. So Mars is where we apply boundaries. We separate from the past. We separate from ideas and aspects of culture or whatever that doesn't reflect our values, right? We separate ourselves from things, and that's discernment. It doesn't mean we're judging it. It just means that doesn't resonate with us or what our ideals are, right? And so this is going to be part of it, is separating ourselves from things that are not really in alignment with what is ideal, while also keeping open that maybe something is an avenue towards what is ideal, in the sense that it does enhance our energy, enhance our focus, in ways maybe we didn't even realize would. The best probably way to gauge that is, what do we feel passionate about? What do we feel attracted to? What feels good? We don't even need to really necessarily always think about it. And that's where Mars and Aries can get challenging in the learning process, because we don't think before we act. But again, that's what Mars helps us to see is, well, what are we acting on? Because that's going to give us opportunity to see, does this enhance my life or not? And I need to utilize discernment and, make a choice, which is a very Mars thing. It's a choice. It's separating the wheat from the chaff. This is the Aries to Virgo axis, right? So right now with the South Node in Virgo, that helps us to actually separate the wheat from the chaff, to really recognize what quality of consciousness we desire. And we know if we feel passionate about it, there's something there for us to learn, and there's something there for us to actually incorporate to move towards what we see as ideal, what we see in our own vision for ourselves as a being. I mean, this is like the new human, right? Neptune and Aries, Pluto and Aquarius, and this summer, Uranus moving into Gemini. Totally, like, all the outer planets moving into new signs. That's huge for us. And so we're becoming something new and with these transits. And Neptune and Aries can help us by assisting us to look at our instincts, to look at our ideals about our instincts, to look at our ideals about our identity, right? And then what we need to do to become it. and recognize that it is always a moving target, right? So I was thinking, I want to do an archetype card for this ingress. And of course, Neptune really kind of contains all the archetypes, and Aries could, because we could be anything as it is related to our own evolutionary purpose. But I just thought it would be fun. I love pulling cards for, just to kind of get the wheels turning in our own minds around things. And while I am shuffling these, I wanted to say, so I realize I don't promote myself enough, meaning that I have people message me and say, are you doing personal readings? And I'm thinking, oh, of course I am. Oh, yeah, I guess I haven't really been saying that. So anytime I'm doing lives or writing my astrology, you can reach out if you'd like to book a session for yourself. You can go to my website, which is knowthyselfandheal.com, and that's where you'll find my rates for the different healing modalities that I practice. And then, of course, you can send me a personal message if you want to book a reading. I don't really chat a lot in my messages and Messenger, so just be aware of that. It's not that I, don't want to get a message from you or anything like that. It's just that I don't really chat so much because I have a lot going on in my life. I have so much going on, right? So I'm not going to be chatting so much, but if you have a question about readings or, how to book a session or any of that, you're certainly welcome. I also want to say that Facebook has changed quite a lot lately, and I am probably going to I do have a group called The Labyrinth, A Journey Through the Eclipses, that's on Facebook, that is really just a group to support eclipse seasons. But I'm probably going to be moving that to Substack, and there will be free things in Substack for this group if you want to join, but also there will be paid things in my Substack where you can, depending on what it is, there will be different paywalls to things, and you can pay to explore deeper with things that's less personal. So in other words, it's helping you with the ingresses or with transits or whatever it is, but it's not so much a reading, right? So anyways, just be aware of that, because it feels to me like it's getting more challenging for people to actually see the people that they're friends with on Facebook, their posts. They're just seeing ads, and they're seeing all these reels that, I'm getting people on my page that it's just people that they're not even like sponsored, it's like not a paid ad. It's literally someone's profile that I've never heard of, seen, and I'm not friends with them. And I'm like, why are they in my timeline? Just because they have a public, thing. Somehow they're in my timeline. I don't understand it. And I'm not friends with them. I don't understand what's going on with Facebook, but I think it's getting more and more challenging to see your friends' posts or see posts of people that you actually have, followed, right? So I think it might be time to be putting more of my focus on Substack and on YouTube. And so that's what I'm going to be doing on Substack. It's called astrolabyrinth.com. So it's really looking at the chart as almost like our own personal labyrinth. We're walking a labyrinth of our own mind. The ideas that need to be looked at, need to be understood, things that need to be understood about ourselves through our own chart that assist us to actually navigate our life in a way that is planting seeds and tending to those seeds to their fruition in our lives. So I'm probably going to be on Facebook less, but I just want you to know I am doing readings. You're certainly welcome to book a reading with me And if you want to know what my rates are, you can go to my website, knowthyselfandheal.com. I do in-person readings if you prefer that, in regards to if you're in where I live at the moment in Washington State, or of course Zoom or by phone. And the readings are recorded. Okay, so I am just going to